everyone, our distinguished guests. Welcome and to our second edition of our Thought Leadership Series, Brand Chats. And this is brought to you by the award-winning experiential marketing agency in Nigeria, Connect Marketing Services. We are thrilled to be your guide in the exhilarating realm of innovative experiential marketing. I'm your host, Esther Nolu, and it's an honor to have you join us in this remarkable episode. It's a privilege as we delve into the topic of unparalleled topic, which is relation to the brand activation in Nigeria. But first of all, I would like to wish everybody happy World Youth Day, and also especially the youths that are joining us in today's session as we delve into the topic, Metaverse Immersion, Unleashing Engaging Experiences for Nigerian Brand Activation. As we all know, the digital sphere is evolving rapidly, and the Metaverse is emerging as a canvas in crafting impactful and unforgettable brand narrative. Guiding us through this exploration, we have two industry luminaires who understand the pulse of the metaverse and the power of brand activation. Introducing Adaramati Shogo, he is the CEO of Alpha and Nimbus. He is a visionary in tech-driven experiences. Welcome, Adaramati.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on here, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for honoring our invite. And we also have a very beautiful lady joining us also. She's Osato Evanwan. She's the marketing manager of Oral Care and Skincare Unilever. She has 13 plus years of experience in being a driving force behind impactful brand storytelling. Thank you, Osato, for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I look forward to a very engaging conversation.
Well, same here. It's really a privilege actually sitting and being in the midst of two bright minds. And this shows that this session promises to be very educative and enlightening. I know at the end of the session, we'll all come out and be like, yes, seeing brand activation from a totally different point of view that we never really thought of. So now let's go to the day and start off with the questions. Okay, so my first question goes to Adaramati. I understand that, this is your space, you're a tech visionary, and a lot of people that are in this space do not properly understand what the metaverse is. They probably have an idea, but they don't really understand. And if you don't understand something, you can't properly make use of it. So I would love for you to give us a rundown what the metaverse is all about. And secondly, how do you envision the metaverse, transforming the brand activation
and how to leverage it, if that makes any sense. And there's a whole lot of things that would now enhance and make the metaverse a reality, such as quantum computing, neuroscience and AI. There's a whole bunch of things that when you plug it into the mix is going to make the metaverse make way more sense than it does right now. So yes, it's still in the very, very early stages, and the technology is still being developed, underway. And I think brands can actually leverage on it by actually tapping into what is available right now and sort of evolving with the whole the process of and the growth of the metaverse, if that makes any sense. So yes, I would say that's my own definition of the metaverse.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, because I think that explanation actually is quite simple and anyone should really understand. We keep hearing about it and we understand that it's still in the growing stage. Let me use that word. It's still in the growing stage, and there's a lot to still learn from it. It shows that it's expanding, and more things are going to form out of the metaverse, and like you also mentioned, the multiverse also. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to go to Osato now. With your experience, working as a marketing manager and working with different industries, do you think, and different brands, do you think that our consumers are ready for a meta-based brand activation? Or do you think they would, everybody might have their restrictions and their, self-reservations? Do you think we are ready as Nigerians, consumers, to actually plug into the metaverse?
Thanks, Esther. I wouldn't I wouldn't use the word ready when we're talking about consumers, because to be honest, consumers have shown that they're very adaptable and they're very quick to jump on the next new thing. So in that sense, and when you think about how we have interacted with technology as each one has come up, in that sense, human beings, we are very adaptable. However, if we looked at the market itself, that's where I would say there are a couple of questions. Is the market ready? I don't know that it is, at least not fully. But is there an opportunity as, brands start to take them on? Definitely yes. And it's important that brands that actually have the wherewithal start to pick up on it. Global brands like Coca-Cola and Samsung have already picked up on the metaverse and all of the stuff that's happening with AI. And those brands exist in Nigeria. And so it's just a matter of time before they come around and start to drive, the pioneering that they're known for. So are consumers ready? I'm sure they'll be. Is the market ready? Not quite. I think there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of ensuring that the infrastructure is available. I think there's a lot of work as well in terms of making sure that awareness is built in the right way. But it definitely is an opportunity.
Yes, that's right. That is actually great because as you mentioned, Coca-Cola and Samsung are already exploring this already outside of the country. So obviously it's almost going to be soon. They are going to bring it home since they are actually one of our largest brands here and they are doing so well. So it's obvious they would one day pioneer such movements of the metaverse in Nigeria. We all can't wait. As you said, the consumers, we will adapt. We all want to have an immersive experience. We want to witness something that is different from the usual. And if we're given that opportunity, I believe that, yes, a lot of consumers are going to jump at the opportunity. And like you said, it all depends on the market and the brands on if they are actually willing to, leverage on this. Okay, so for Adaramati, I would love to ask, what kind of experiences can brands create within the metaverse? So yeah, a lot of brands are managers and all are here, professionals, and yes, they've heard about what the metaverse is and all of that, but what kind of experiences can they create within the metaverse? We understand that it's still in the baby phase and it's still growing, but what can they do at the moment?
So I would try to keep it very simple like I have done. I would say the metaverse right now is limited to just augmented and virtual reality. And like my company has done, for a couple of brands, keeping it simple is like the best thing they can do. So I think brands should make if they're going to use technologies available now like AR and VR, they have to understand the consumer's pain. And what that means is the consumer must not find it painstakingly hard to we want them to use it in such a way that they don't realize they are using any of these immersive technologies. And, eventually they're like, oh, I'm using it. What is this thing? And it's like, oh, yo, it's AR or it's VR, right? We don't want a situation where it's like we put something in VR in front of them and they're like, so what next? That already, that's part of the consumer pain. And once it's complicated, once it's too what they call it now, once it's too hard to sort of the learning curve, like once it's too hard, once it's too complicated, it turns off majority of people. And what I would say is in our own research internally, what we realized is for augmented reality, which is like juxtaposing the physical environment to the virtual, consumers are more receptive to like static objects. So what that means is for an art exhibition or for an activation, people are more receptive to AR because that one uses their phone cameras and it deploys in physical space and that sort of blows their mind. Then for VR, what we realized internally is consumers don't like static experiences. So what that means is 2018, we had an art exhibition in Toronto for the Commonwealth Africa initiative, and we realized most of the feedback we got from the people who actually viewed that exhibition was that they were not so excited because art is static. It's literally something they're staring at in the space and having to, I mean, so many minutes trying to wear the headset, trying to figure out, okay, do I move forward? Do I move back? And then you wear this headset and what's inside is static. It's boring, like for most of them. So that's why you have things like the famous game they play online, all those online metaverse games. You know, there's a whole bunch of them now, and people are more excited for that. So brands understanding what they're using the metaverse for, like the technologies available now, is very important. Is very, very important, and we can't overemphasize that, because if your content is actually not exciting enough, and the application is now used the wrong way, it could backfire on you, right? So brands have to be very, very conscious of what and why they're doing it. Like, I'll give a very good example. Louis Vuitton, I think that was last year, they were trying to make the newer generation know their brand. So they did this thing in the metaverse, like a game, and it was free, absolutely free to play. And I think they put like 30 NFTs in the game where you like collect them for users to like apply and, you know, collect NFTs. I mean, search the environment, find NFTs by Louis Vuitton. And all you have is they were able to like pass the message to the newer generation. They know exactly what the brand stands for. Or it's almost like a video game. It's fun. They could explore. And it was made by people, I think, some artists like that. So, I mean, the point is the brand Louis Vuitton now understood the assignment, and they wanted to pass a message to a newer generation, and they sort of nailed it well, because now they created an experience that encompasses everything their brand stands for, and the rollout in terms of the modus operandi of passing the message, like the carriage, the vehicle they used to pass the message, which was VR, was perfect. So I think brands need to understand what message they want to communicate, and sort of dissect, you know, their own model of, you know, rollout to sort of understand that, okay, what is going to be the user's reaction and what's not. And once we have that, I think any brand can literally leverage on the way.
Okay, so wow, that is actually quite insightful. So basically, it's brands having to understand their consumers, as well as understanding their brands and what they actually want to offer, which would give them a guide to how they want to use the metaverse. So it's going to be diverse for different brands.
Exactly.
Right. So how Coca-Cola will use the metaverse is not the way, you know, Samsung will use the metaverse, because their audience are different and the message they want to pass across are totally different. So it's all tied down. So it's all tied down to the brands and how they want to push them. That's quite insightful. Okay, so now I'm going to speak to Osato. Now we understand that, like you mentioned earlier, some of these brands are already using the metaverse, you know, outside of the country. And now we are like, okay, they could bring it home. But we understand that home here, we have different diversity of culture, languages, and, you know, everybody's having all different backgrounds. It's a diverse, you know, community. I'm going to call Nigeria a community in the sense. And that could, you know, form a sort of hindrance or obstacle, or how will I put it? So how can brands actually leverage this? How can they bring that diversity into the metaverse in a sense whereby people are being inclusive in the metaverse, no matter their tribe, educational level, language, or, you know, no matter the difference that they have? How can brands actually put all these people and give them an experience, a brand activation experience in the metaverse?
Esther, that's a great question. And I think that the possibilities in the metaverse are also very well suited to driving personalization. And it also depends on how much insight the brands are able to gather before they actually start to do their work. When I think about, for instance, how we adapt our communication assets now, just to cater to different audiences, it's simply about, you know, someone in the room realizing that people are different, understanding the areas of of divergence as well as the commonalities, and then bringing that into the creative work. So if you went into the metaverse, for example, if you wanted to create an activation within the space and you were wanting to drive something experiential, if being identified from a certain tribe is a critical insight with regards to that brand and regards to the consumer, then it might be easy. And this is me talking tech stuff that I have absolutely no clue about, but it might be easy to create it such that, when you go in there, you hear it being told to you in your own language. And that's if your language is a critical part of the insight that has been gathered. But you've also got to think about the fact that brands need to be careful not to try to be everything to everyone, because if you are trying to do that, then you become nothing to anybody. So it's really important that the brands understand their audience, understand what makes them tick, understand what's important to them really in the context of the brand and the product that they're offering, and then use that as a driver for creating the inclusive space that's necessary.
Okay, that's wonderful. That actually just, emphasizes what Adaramasi also mentioned earlier, which is the brands actually understanding their customers and also understanding their offering. And this would guide them on how they actually want to use the metaverse. And like you said, a brand cannot take everybody, literally. He can't take everybody. So he needs to understand their customers. And like you said, from the insights gathered, it will be a direction for them on how they can be inclusive as much as possible. Okay, so Adaramati, we understand that in Nigeria, the internet, service connection is quite inconsistent in some regions, and this could be an obstacle, a challenge, right, in some brands trying to do brand activation in certain areas, because some areas, some network are stronger, some don't even have connections at all. So how can brands use this metaverse in such way and make it accessible for people, even those who are having internet issues? How can brands actually work with that?
Thank you very much for that question, Esther. It's a very good question. And the truth is, I don't think it's just a Nigerian problem. I think globally, I was in another meeting about the metaverse. Apparently about 2 billion people around the world are still struggling to get internet connection. And, I think it's a problem that might not, hopefully always exist, with the whole the new developments with Starlink by Elon Musk and things like that, making the internet accessible to everybody from anywhere. So I think in the future, this problem will become old. And like we stated in the beginning, the metaverse is evolving at such a rapid rate. The world is becoming a smaller global village, as opposed to in the 90s when, the computer and the mobile phones came out. And one thing I'm optimistic about is it will be a problem of the past. Right now, say Nigerian brands need to the last speaker said, she emphasized, and we can't overemphasize it enough. You have to know your target market. You have to know your target, your geographical zone, like where you want to sort of intensify, and do an activation. But I would also advise brands to sort of hop on this wave, because there's a whole lot of things happening in the metaverse. It's almost like, let's just call it an alternate universe, and a lot of brands don't yet exist in this alternate universe. People are selling real estate for $1 million in the metaverse, and another person is saying, yo, that's crazy. Why would you buy land, that's literally virtual? So I feel brands need to understand their place in the metaverse, which is a very hard question for any brand to answer, especially when they don't understand, the technology, and being that the technology in itself is still in the very nuclear stage or state. So it's hard to sort of place yourself in something that has not been formed, right? It's like a baby. When the baby doesn't come out, you don't know if the baby looks like the mom or the dad, right? It's just like the baby's there and it's ultrasound. So I think a lot of brands are struggling with trying to understand their place in the metaverse, and it's very valid. But I think a lot of brands should also sort of take advantage of the time, because I know the metaverse is going to evolve very fast and very rapidly with, the other science, technological advances we're having, and the way they're growing. So I would say for brands now in Nigeria, they should sort of understand their audience, what they're trying to achieve, like I said last time, and sort of now fine tune that objective in such a way that it aligns with the kind of immersive experience they're trying to roll out. So I think that's my candid advice to brands in Nigeria.
And then I'll answer your question on whether or not when consumers have reservations, whether brands are able to sort of get them along the train or on the train. The simple thing is, if you create a memorable experience, right? One that is immersive, one that people cannot stop talking about, one that is seamless and easy. And I think Adarmati mentioned it earlier, as well. If you make the process simple, and if it feels like it's not a problem, adapting into their lives, you will have people pick it up. We like to experience new things. We like to do new stuff. We like to also be able to join in the talk. If someone came and told you about such an amazing experience they had, you would want to try it as well. And so, besides your reservation, it's a bit different. There's still people who have their reservations, but more people have gotten comfortable with it. Organizations have started to incorporate it into their processes. Software companies are building it into their products already. And as we go along, it's going to get to a point where AI becomes an integral part of life and work and pretty much everything. So create an experience that's simple, measurable, and that adds value. And you will not be able to stop people from taking it up.
That was quite an example. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back from our break. So Osato was really saying something very enlightening about the brands and the fact, and we're mentioning how AI, like I said, I enjoy, or I like that example of AI, because I remember last year ChatGPT was a thing that a lot of people were like, no, it's reducing my intellectual capabilities, it's making some people slow, AI is going to take over my job. And but now looking at it, everybody, in fact, you go on YouTube, you're seeing videos about how to use ChatGPT and seeing a lot of people watch it and how to use OpenAI. And now there are like a lot of AI now for different things, and everybody's plugging into it. I know there are still people who are reserved, but along the line, they are definitely going to join in, and that would most likely still be the same case with the metaverse. There are going to be people with their reservations, but as it gets popular, and like you said, if you make the process seamless, easy, simple, and you're able to create in like an experience that is memorable, which is the important part of it. It will be, if I get an experience that is memorable, I'm going to tell someone like, oh, I tried this and this is what happened. You post it online, it's a social village now. Everything is online. And once that you plug into that, a lot of people are going to join in as, time goes on. So Adaramati, I wanted to ask, so you mentioned the NFT earlier, and yes, the NFT is gaining a lot of popularity in the metaverse, and a lot of people are plugging into this. How can brands leverage on the NFT to create value for their activations for their consumers?
Thank you, Esther. So what I would say is NFTs are pretty much art. And being a visual artist myself, is the same way an artist creates value out of his talent. I mean, it's not sort of like and for people who don't understand the art world, I mean, they'll see paintings selling for millions of dollars and, they'll be like, wow. I mean, last I checked, the NFT space and marketplace is about $13 billion, and it's growing bigger every day. So I'd say, first off, we would like to explain to people that NFTs, I mean, it's an acronym for non-fungible tokens. And, non-fungible simply meaning it's a unique piece. Like whatever NFT in particular that you get is unique. The fungible token is, for instance, a Bitcoin, right? So if we trade Bitcoins, you have one Bitcoin, I have one, we exchange, it's the same. Right? But if I have an NFT and you have another NFT, none of them can ever be the same. They are very different, right? So that's the non-fungible. And, so it's basically artists, creators, and creatives, having a marketplace where they virtually trade things. And for brands, I would say brands can leverage on that. Like the example I gave before, LV was trying to introduce itself to the new generation, the Gen Z and the Generation Alpha, right? And they sort of created 30 NFTs, right? So they got an artist, a visual artist, to create NFTs. So the artist now creating those NFTs has given it sort of like a value. And being affiliated with the brand LV has created value for that non-fungible token. And they sort of hid those NFTs in different places in the metaverse for people to find. So I'll say brands could have the power, could create NFTs, collaborating with creatives, creative directors, artists, to sort of create unique virtual, let's say, works of art, and sort of get people to engage with them, right? And like we've been saying, myself and Osato, it's quite important that you sort of understand your trajectory as a brand and the message you're trying to pass, so that you are not trying to put people that are probably 85, having them wear virtual reality glasses to be looking for treasures, in the virtual space. I mean, it's not practical, right? So, I mean, you have to understand your consumers, you have to understand your objective and how your brand is going to leverage. You have to have I feel every progressive brand today should have a metaverse strategy, even if you're not executing it now. I mean, you should just have it down so that whenever it becomes, a fully developed ecosystem, you have a place there as a brand, right? So I think once people understand and brands understand this, they wouldn't be so afraid, of the metaverse as such, because yes, it's still evolving, as the case might be right now. And it's very important people understand. That's why we're doing this, so that brands will know how to leverage on it better and sort of know the difference. So NFTs is something that could be used with AR or VR. It depends on how you want to like we have been saying, leverage your brand's rollout strategy, your image, your objective, understanding your audience. And that's what I would say about NFTs and brand using them.
Okay, that's quite. I remember seeing an event, I think Metaverse launching in Nigeria, and they did create they got creators to, you know, they collaborated with creators to create something with the NFTs, and then people, they got youths, the Gen Zs, the, you know, and then it was like a whole concert, and they were even creating concerts with, you know, the virtual reality. And that's just like one brand being able to leverage on the NFT, and people were able to buy, you know, purchase and engage with this artworks created. So yes, that is like one way of engaging using the NFTs. And like you said, brands needing to create a strategy for the metaverse, even if they are not leveraging it on it now, but for the future. And when it's time to, it's not at that point that they are trying to come up with a plan or a strategy. And by then it might be too late. And other brands have already keyed in and already, you know, gotten a lot out of it before they get in. So that is quite, so aside from the NFTs, there are like, you know, a lot of other ways to leverage on the metaverse for brands. Okay, so Osato, I'd like to ask you, how can brands, you know, measure KPIs, you know, the metrics and the key performance indicators would you, you know, recommend for brands to measure the impact of their activation on the metaverse? Is it maybe people, as much as people are engaging in the metaverse, or what KPIs can brands use?
So that's an interesting question. And to be honest, I had started to think about it prior to this call. It's new, it's risky, and like Adaramati mentioned, it's still very nascent. So we're still in a space where we're trying to understand how it works, which means that we haven't quite figured out what are the key drivers of engagement, for instance. But I suspect, or I expect that at some point in time, if you do choose to invest in marketing in the metaverse, then you want to be able to understand the extent to which it is driving sales, the extent to which it is driving conversion. So how often are people getting wind of your brand in that space, and how often is it driving them to purchase? You also probably want to be able to test for the kinds of feedback that you're getting on the brand. So are you getting positive or negative feedback? Sentiment, I think it's what it's called. And then you also want to, of course, be able to measure engagement. So how often are people engaging with your content? How long are they staying to engage with your content? And how often are they coming back? But those would be rough ideas. At the end of the day, really, it's about the money. We need to sell. And so whatever it is that we're doing needs to be driving conversion. So it can be all fun and games, but it's got to bring the money to come through.
Yes, you're right. At the end of the day, every brand wants to make money. Every brand wants to make sales. So that is like a major KPI for them. And it's how they leverage this metaverse, because it's going to take a lot, you know, to get into it. And obviously you want to make back that, you know, both your capital and your profits. And that is a key indicator, as well as engagement, like you mentioned. Okay, so this is our last question, and it's based for both speakers. So I'll let Adaramati speak first, and then Osato. So what do you think the future holds for the metaverse-based activation? Is this a trend that you think will last, especially in Nigeria? Do you think it's something that will last, or is something, you know, sometimes when trends come in, everybody is all excited because it's new, and then after a period of time, people get tired, something new comes up, and, you know, they're jumping on that. Do you think the metaverse activation is something that would last, or something that might die off? So Adaramati, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Esther. I'm one of the, if I do say so myself, I'm one of the pioneers of the metaverse in Nigeria, because before Mark came out, I remember I was going to a lot of agencies like preaching metaverse, and a lot of them were like, "Oh God, what are you saying? This is not Star Wars, you know." And we now got the optics after Mark came out, and it was like metaverse. So for us, it was like a large, you know, rush of people coming left, right, and center, and we've been able to, like, you know, now execute ideas we've always had, and we're willing to execute. So what I would say is the metaverse is not going to die out. And, you know, one thing that gives me the certainty that's not going to die out, actually two two major tech giants. What am I even saying? More than two. I heavily invested in the metaverse. One of them being Facebook, that changed, their name to Meta. That's one. Two, Apple has low-key been working on, their glasses, Vision Pro, for years. I've been waiting for that thing. And for the first time, actual civilians are going to have access to quantum computing. I don't know what is crazier than that. That's one of the major, it's almost like the mobile phone coming out. That's what this Vision Pro is. Because, when you wear the glasses, you can sort of scroll on the screen using finger gestures. You can increase the volume, reduce the volume using finger gestures. You can pick up an app with your pupil focus, So I think that is indication, a very, very clear indication. And then Google, Microsoft, and the other big tech giants, I invested heavily, in the software part. And I think it's very, very clear that, the metaverse is here to stay, because you can see some companies focusing on the hardware, some focusing on the software, and then or sort of like the structure of the system, like the abstract structure, and you can see others focusing on both, and some are focusing on the data and insights. So it's clear, it's a very clear indication that it has come to stay, and the evolution of the technology is also dependent on the other technologies being, brought up these days, such as AI. AI has a huge role to play in the metaverse. I'm talking, the metaverse is going to evolve in such a way that if you're meeting with someone in France and you are in Lagos, Nigeria, or you are in Ghana, and you guys have a handshake in a meeting, you would literally feel the person's hand. We're talking neuroscience here. So, that is eventually going to happen. I don't know whether it's going to be next year, but I don't think it's going to be next year, to be honest. Maybe between 5 to 10 years. However, it's clear that they are trying to now stimulate the human senses to sort of respond to things they see in the metaverse, and what that means is you'll be able to smell, you'll be able to feel, and that is crazy, And yes, that brings me to the downsides. There's a lot of downsides people have had, and I think it's quite valid. For people in 2045, will probably look like old school people, in the sense that we hope they don't lose touch of reality, talking about online cyberbullying, and things like that. People losing touch with reality, human beings not knowing how to connect to each other on a physical level again. So, these are some of the fears. Security, people using it for evil. I think these things, like every other thing, is going to come with the territory. So I think governments also need to get involved in a very subtle way to ensure that, we regulate our operations and the modus operandi of the entire. I think that's what's actually holding back a lot of development in the metaverse. The government being able to regulate and ensure that people's lives and properties, and their information is protected in a very, very humanistic way. So that is my final remark. Thank you very much, Esther.
Thank you so much for that. I gave so much. I can't even start listing every one of them. Yes, everything has a downside, and it's good that you highlighted that downside. Yes, we've been talking about the positive part of the metaverse and how brands can leverage on it and how they should leverage on it and create strategies. But then, like you said, there are also the downside of it. We are having the cyberbully, people losing touch of reality because they are now in another virtual reality and they've lost touch of, where they are. And then, like you said, security, nobody wants to lose their information. And, the government has to look at all these things before, pushing this all out. And a lot of brands have to also protect their identity and everything that they have. But like you said, there's so many aspects of the metaverse that keeps evolving and will keep evolving, and it shows that the metaverse is here to stay, and it's just left for us to plug into it and start creating strategies on how we can grow. As the digital world is evolving, we are evolving with it and not left behind.
Yes.
So Osato, what is your take?
I don't think it's going to die off. That's my honest view. What I think, though, is that it will continue to be refined. And we as brand people, as human beings, as consumers, will mostly adapt with it. I think that it provides a lot of opportunity for new ways for brands to interact with its consumers. And so it's going to be important not just to build a strategy for operating in the metaverse, but also figure out how to ensure the connection between the metaverse and what we know as reality today. Because whether we like it or not, we are in a space or in a part of the world where the products and brands that we buy and use today, we use in real life. And there will always continue to be a need for that, for us to use those things in real life. And so even if we start our activations or our launch events or our brand experiences digital first, it will continue to be important to bring it home, back to the physical and back to reality. That's my take.
You're right, because no matter how exciting it is, the products are going to be used in the physical. We are going to drink that drink or buy that product in the physical.
Absolutely. So, even though with neuroscience coming up and you might start to taste stuff that doesn't exist, but in real life, you will still need to eat real
you still need to own it and you need to buy
and drink real water and stuff to actually survive.
Exactly. Exactly, the water. You're definitely going to need to drink real water, no matter how you can, taste it in the virtual world, but tasting it isn't going to show in your body. So you do need that. Oh, thank you so much. This has been an engaging session. I have learned so much, even I as the host, I've learned so much from both of you. I already had an understanding of the metaverse. I know about brand activation, but merging the two together and hearing this, from both minds, I've been able to say, okay, yes, this is something that is really possible. And it's just for brands to key into it. And like one of the key things is, from what I've gotten, is most of the responsibility still lies on the brand, more into keying and deciding what they want to do with the metaverse and how they want to create experiences by understanding their audience, which is important. So they don't create experience that their audience don't want to relate to it, basically, and making it seamless and simple. That is the key to, impactful, immersive experience. Thank you so much for joining. Really, really do appreciate your time. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you. And to our audience who also stay tuned, thank you. It's been so much. I can't even use words to explain it anymore. I know that we've all learned a lot. We are going out of this space, thinking of how we can engage, how can we be a part of this evolving technology and this digital world as it's evolving. Like I mentioned, we are evolving with it. Thank you once again. My name is Esther Nolu, and stay tuned. We are going to be back for the next quarter episode of Brand Chats. You can follow us on our social media page and YouTube and our website for updates. Thank you and have a lovely weekend. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
And I would say everyone should watch this movie, Every Brand Person, by Steven Spielberg, Ready Player, to give you a very, very, very visual understanding of what the metaverse is like.
Metaverse is. Okay, I think I've heard of the movie, but I think I have it on my list of playlists, but I've not actually watched it. But definitely, I would add it to my list. And like I said, every brand should. I think it to give a more understanding of everything that we've discussed.
Visualize, yeah.
You too. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.